being able to edit your own watercolor and, scan it, edit it, whatever, and prep the files and get it all ready for the manufacturer is an incredible asset to have as an artist pitching or presenting your work to a manufacturer.
Hey, I'm Becca with the Happy Ever Crafter, and in this week's interview, I'm talking to Jenna Rainey, who is doing a little mini lesson for us on how to scan and edit your watercolor work. She's also talking to us about why that's such a helpful skill if you are interested at all in getting your work onto products in stores and exploring the licensing side of creative business. So Jenna has a new course out with her agent, Julie, who is helping her give all the information out to creatives like us who want to explore the world of licensing but need a little bit of help to get through all the crazy, difficult, legal, terrifying aspects of it all. And so if you're interested in any of that, let's jump right into the lesson. Woo! Jenna, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited.
Oh my God, that's going to be the best intro I've ever had on the show. So good. Welcome. Jeez.
Thank you.
Oh my God, that was great.
So excited to be here.
So I already let everyone know in the intro that I do before you come on what this lesson is going to be about, and they're all going to be ready to go on your digitizing watercolors lesson. But before we get too far into that, can you let everybody know who you are, what you do, that kind of rundown of stuff?
Sure thing. So I am Jenna Rainey.
I'm still laughing. I'm still laughing.
I don't know why I'm in such a weird mood right now. I've only had one latte. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I'm Jenna Rainey. I'm an artist, designer. I do mostly watercolor, but I started off actually with pointed pen calligraphy. 7 years ago is when I started my business, and I've transformed. I've pivoted from doing wedding stationery is how I started, addressing envelopes and whatnot, to writing books. I have a bunch of how-to books in watercolor, and now I do licensing, and I license my artwork to manufacturers and to retailers. So, and I also provide online education. So I have my hand in a few different pots, and I've pivoted a lot along the way, but that's basically what I do. You can find my work on Instagram. My handle is just Jenna Rainey, and my website is jennarainey.com.
Awesome. Well, yeah, you kind of touched on it, but I was going to ask you, like, when I started following you, your business looked very different than it does now. I think I probably started following you because you were doing pointed pen calligraphy, and that's what I'm in love with. And so can you talk a little bit about how different it was then and how it is now, and like how that all happened? Like, why did you change it so much?
Yeah. So for me, when I started, and I'm sure there's a few people who watch your show that do client service-based businesses or work in wedding industry or wedding stationery or whatever. And a lot of what I was doing was just solely dependent upon my time. And so the first 5 years of my business, I was working with wedding stationery clients doing custom work. So everything was completely custom, and it felt a lot of the times like it was around the clock and I wasn't getting paid what I was worth. And then it was like, and nothing wrong with people who work in the wedding industry, it just wasn't for me. And so I knew I needed to gain more of my time back and make more money doing what I love, because I couldn't sustain this lifestyle of like doing something completely brand new and custom and working with wedding clients. And I knew that there was something more. So long story short, I pivoted into licensing because it's a massive industry. It's huge. Like, you could be in beauty and licensing art for like actual cosmetic cases, or you could be in office supply and license your artwork to manufacturers who create planners or to-do lists or whatever. And then there's textile. It's just massive. And so I knew that there was this opportunity here, and I was approached by a yoga towel company about 2 years ago. And that's kind of how it started. They were asking, what would you charge if we were to hire you to design 3 different yoga towels with your watercolor on it? And I had no idea, like pricing for any creative, I feel like, is just this like, I don't know, let's just like pull stuff out of the sky and maybe ask a few friends, lots of Googling, and I couldn't find anything online. I reached out to a friend who I knew did licensing. Her name is Dabney Lee, and she's incredibly successful in licensing. And she pointed me to her agent, Julie. And so Julie and I have been working together for the past 2 years. She's gotten me a ton of different jobs. Like we have a couple lines coming out in Target and Office Depot and Staples and whatnot. So anyway, really exciting stuff when you can see your art on products, and it's like going beyond something that you're just like constantly coming up with custom things. Like I have this huge library of work, and so many artists have huge libraries of work online, and it just gets used one time and then it's dead. So licensing, you get to repurpose and make commission off of each sale, off of something you do one time. And so that was my pivot into licensing. And anyway, I've learned so much over the last 2 years. And Julie, my agent, and I, we actually just teamed up and came out with this online course called Brand Plus Brand that basically teaches you how to pitch to brands and manufacturers, how to find them in stores, because that's a huge question too. Like, how do I find an agent, or how do I find a manufacturer to pitch to if I don't want to do weddings anymore, or I don't want to do what I'm doing and I want to work with Vans, let's say, and get my designs on some shoes or whatever. So we teach you how to find the manufacturers, how to pitch to them, what to say, how to put together a pitch deck, how to read contracts, how to negotiate your pricing, gaining an audience on social media, just so many topics that people who are in the creative industry aren't aware of, that they can be doing with their talents. They can be licensing their work and making royalties and commissions. I'm sort of just like totally bulldozing through your last question and just like talking, so you can cut me off.
No.
But anyway, there's like so much opportunity for creatives, and I saw that a couple years ago, and Julie's helped me through all of that, and it's been amazing. And I love the work that I get to do every day. So anyway, I don't remember your original question anymore.
My original question was how you pivoted your business. And I love that you got like so passionate about it really quickly.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Because I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially like you said, you realize my audience probably is doing weddings, and like it definitely can burn you out. And I think a lot of people probably resonated with that. Yeah. But I know that one thing that's really scary for people who might want to take that leap is that like that requires you to not just do the art and hand it over. You have to do the art and digitize it and, you know, actually get it all ready and understand how that whole side of things works, which is where your little mini lesson comes in. So we're definitely going to talk more about your course. And for anybody who was watching and hearing you talk about it, I will link down to it below, but we'll talk about it more after your mini lesson. I think we just need to cover that before we talk about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Being able to digitize your artwork is absolutely imperative if you're working with manufacturers and you want your work on products. It has to happen. So, but it's not that difficult. And it took me years to figure out these steps that I use that I'm going to show in the tutorial in Photoshop. I was doing it the long way for the longest time and just like pulling my hair out. And so it's just a couple quick, easy steps for scanning and editing your watercolor in Photoshop. So I'm going to show you.
That was actually the one question I want to ask before I get my face off of here is I think Photoshop is really overwhelming for people. Did you teach yourself completely, or how did you figure it all out?
I mean, essentially, yeah, I did teach myself through the MacGyvering of like Google searching and putting my detective pants on, and you know, the rabbit holes of, there's so much free information out there on YouTube that you can definitely figure this out on your own without taking a course on digitizing. And obviously this YouTube video is prime example. But yeah, it was just like a conglomeration of like this YouTube video from over here, this Google search and that sort of thing. But yeah, if I would have taken a little mini tutorial on it, or even I would have paid for it to learn it, you know, overnight, but it took me years to find all the things.
Okay, well, amazing. Everybody watching can learn it overnight and you don't even have to pay for it. So, okay, I will take my face off of here and let you do your mini tutorial, and then we'll come back on and talk about it. Okay.
Okay, so I have my favorite watercolor supplies, and approaching a licensing program or collection that I'm painting for products, there's usually some sort of design direction coming from the manufacturer, or if you're just working with a client, then they have some sort of idea when it comes to color palette, or if they want abstract patterns versus we want cats or dogs or floral. So with that in mind, I'm going to actually just be showing you some simple dots and how I repurpose them and copy and paste them over and over again in Photoshop after I paint them. So I have a color palette in mind. It's going to be more of a vibrant summer color vibe. So a lot of pinks and reds and oranges. So I'm just going to lay paint on paper, and you can, with Photoshop, having the skills in Photoshop and the tools in Photoshop, you can just paint something a couple of times or once and repurpose it inside Photoshop. So you don't have to create the entire pattern on your actual sheet of paper. You can just duplicate it in Photoshop, which is awesome. So I'm mixing up a few different colors, and I'm just going to be painting some dots on my paper, and then I'm going to scan it and take it into Photoshop, where I'm going to show you how to scan and edit in Photoshop. So I'm using a balance of pinks, oranges, and some greens, and I'm adding a variety of values to both cool and warm colors, so it's not just the same value, lightness and darkness of that color. So I have a bunch of different options to choose from when I'm actually creating the pattern in Photoshop. I might throw in some blue in there, but I'm really just having fun with the color. This is going to be going on a planner, some office supplies. So I'm just throwing color on paper right now, and if I don't like something, I don't have to use it in Photoshop. All right, I have a few rows of these little dots. Couple different options for each color that I know I want to use in this collection. And now I'm ready for this to dry, scan, and duplicate things and create this pattern in Photoshop. So we're going to take it over to my computer, and I'm going to show you that entire process. All right, so now I've got my painting in my scanner bed. I use an Epson V550 scanner, 9x12 bed. And I've got my image ready to scan, and here on your scanner settings, you're going to want to make sure that if it's printed material, if it's going to be printed on paper, planners, whatever, even fabric, you want to make sure that it's at least 300 dpi. So you want to make sure that the dots per inch are at least 300 or higher. If you're going to scale up the artwork and make it bigger, you need to make it higher. But I'm not going to scale up these dots, so I'm leaving it at 300. That's the minimum requirement for any sort of printed medium. And if your artwork is only going to be for web and it's only going to live on a screen, then you can do 72. But this is going to be printed, and I've hit preview, so we have our dots all in the frame, and that's good. You can actually, if things are looking a bit dark from your scanner and they don't look like your original artwork, you can toggle brightness or contrast if you want to. I usually don't edit these unless the image is just looking really dark compared to the original painting, but this looks fine. So I'm going to hit scan, and right now I'm just going to save this into the licensing program folder that I have in Dropbox with the manufacturer I'm working with. So we're going to scan it, and let's name it Dots Round 2. Super creative. Something that you'll remember it by. Click OK, and now we're ready to open the scan in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm in Photoshop. Currently I have my file open, Dots Round 2. JPEG file, and currently it is in RGB color mode, and I don't want it to be in RGB color mode because that is for screens, and I want it to be in print ready color mode, which is CMYK. So I'm going to select CMYK under image color mode and convert it to CMYK. Sometimes this changes your colors a little bit, but this time it did fine. But if it does, you can come up to this adjustments panel and tweak the hue, saturation, etc. if you need to. So I'm going to open my layers panel here on the right, and delete this because we don't actually need it. And unclick this locked icon for the background, and I'm going to Command Shift New for a new layer and make a new background layer, and use the paint bucket tool to make the background white. So if I get rid of this, it's no longer just a transparent background, it's a white background. So now if I zoom in, you'll see that the watercolor texture, the paper texture shows up, and we don't want that. So I'm gonna get rid of that paper texture by using the magic eraser tool. So if you hit E on your keyboard as a shortcut for eraser, you can come over here on your toolbar and see that there's 3 different types of erasers. Make sure the magic eraser tool is selected. And so I'm going to come to my canvas, make sure that I'm selected on the layer that the artwork is on, and hit anywhere on the paper to erase that paper texture background. As you can see, it goes away. There's still some elements that it didn't pick up. It basically recognizes similar color and value area that you want to erase and takes it out for you. And if the tolerance is super low, it's not going to pick up darker areas like this. So let's up that to like 40 and see how that does. So I'm going to click here. Takes it a little bit more, like this edge was there before still. So let's go up a little bit higher and see how that does. Clicking on the area, and we still have a couple dots, so I'm just going to grab the regular eraser and just get rid of those. Nothing major, but watercolor can be really tricky to edit, so it does take patience, but these are some quick ways to edit your watercolor in Photoshop, and all we're doing editing wise is just erasing that paper background. If areas of your actual watercolor disappear like this, what you're going to do is you're going to select the history brush tool, which is the shortcut of Y on your keyboard. We're going to go up to our history panel and select a move before we hit magic eraser. So let's select that paint bucket. And the history brush is a brush, so you can increase the size of the brush with the left bracket or the right bracket and decrease it with the right bracket. But all it's doing is it's bringing back whatever was erased on the move in your history that you want it to bring back to from. So history brush tool, magic eraser tool, and regular eraser tool are huge with editing watercolor. All right, so now I'm ready to actually build out this pattern. I'm gonna get all these dots on separate layers. To do that, I am gonna use L as a shortcut on my keyboard and highlight or outline the area around the dot that I want to select. Click Command C for copy, Command Shift N for new layer, hot pink, let's say, and Command X to cut it from this. So let's get rid of that. All right, hot pink is on that layer. So do it again. Let's select this light pink one, Command X, Command Shift N for new layer, light pink. And then Command V. Command T to move it around. You can rotate it by bringing it around like this, or hold your Shift key down and it'll go by 15 degrees. You can resize it by holding the mouse pad down or trackpad or whatever you're using. Hit Enter. All right, so now I'm going to do that with the rest of these dots, and then I'm going to start building out this pattern once they're all on their own individual layers. All right, so I have all of the dots that I want from my original painting on their separate layers. There's a couple or a few that I didn't want to use because the colors were either too dark or they didn't, based on the design brief that I got from the manufacturer, they didn't really fit with the color palette they were going for. So we're not using those. I'm just hiding that original layer. And here's all of the layers for each individual dot. So I can move them around, I can rotate them, I can duplicate them, etc. So I'm going to show you my process for creating this simple pattern. You can do this with anything that you paint or illustrate. You can do it with leaves, florals, dogs, cats. Same steps will be used in Photoshop. So I'm going to grab this first yellow dot, and we're just going to kind of move it around and start duplicating it. So I'm hitting Command J on my keyboard to duplicate, and then you can, once the layer is selected, click Command T to move it around and rotate it. We don't want things to look exactly the same, so doing a little 15-degree rotate is going to be a good idea per dot so it doesn't look like an exact copy. So I'm literally just duplicating that first yellow dot that was up here a few times and rotating it a little bit. Command J and then Command T. I'm going fast, but you can pause and replay and go back to things if you're learning. So we're just kind of dispersing this, and I'm going to then group all of these, group all these yellow 3s in all their copies. So Command G, once I've highlighted all the layers, and so I can stay a little bit organized. Yellow 3, because there's 3 yellow dots. I'm really creative with my naming. So now we're going to duplicate yellow 2, do the same exact thing. So Command J, Command T to grab our duplicate, rotate it. Let's bring it up here maybe. And now I'm going to do that with all of my dots. So I do this about 5 times per dot until I get more dots on the artboard, and then I start landing the colors where I want them to go. So I'm going to do this, and we'll get caught up in the actual pattern making phase. So I've got a few groups here that I've created by duplicating layers and dots of watercolor, and this pattern is starting to fill out a bit more, which I'm liking. It's obviously dense up here because that's where our original layers are that I haven't gone through and duplicated yet. So I'm going to continue duplicating, and as I am duplicating these dots, the pattern is starting to take shape. I basically want to make sure that color is landing in a zigzag formation across my artboard, just so we don't have clumps of pink next to each other or clumps of yellow next to each other. I'm also thinking about color theory and how orange and blue are contrasting colors and help make a piece seem more vibrant, or pink and green next to each other makes a piece really punchy. So kind of mixing it up like that, thinking about color theory as I go, but not overthinking it until I have time to edit this once I duplicate all of my layers. So I'm going to continue doing that for the rest of these remaining layers. I'm going to move this a bit down here, duplicate that, rotate, and finish that up with the rest of these layers, and then our pattern is basically done. Right, so there's all the duplicating and rotating for all the dots and all the layers. I'm going to kind of make my eyes go out of focus. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about when you look and kind of get fuzzy eyes when you look at something. It really helps you to get a read on the color that's on the page. So when I do that, it helps me analyze if I need to add more cool colors versus warm colors. And when I do that, I'm seeing a lot of orange and red. So I'm going to make this pop a little bit more with adding some more yellow. So I'm going to come over to here to this group of yellow and just duplicate a couple more of these and add those so that it kind of balances out all of the orange and red that's going on. So you can also add more blue to help balance out, but I want this to be more warm colors than cool colors. So yellow is both a warm and a cool color, but this is a warm yellow. So I'm going to duplicate this a bit more to balance out the piece. Maybe go to our other group of yellows and duplicate these just for some variety. And already I'm liking how that's kind of balancing out the oranges and the pinks and reds, and pretty much satisfied with this little watercolor confetti pattern. I'm going to save it as a PSD file and send to my manufacturer that I'm working with as a PSD file and also as a PNG, so we can create mock-ups together on products. All right, I hope you have fun with this tutorial and you start incorporating it with your artwork, whether it's watercolor, acrylic, illustrations, whatever type of or medium you choose and you like to use. This is a fun way to edit your own artwork, scan it, edit, digitize, and create a fun little pattern.
Well, that was awesome. But actually, I do have one question about Photoshop. Let's say someone is just watched that tutorial and they still feel like completely overwhelmed as like step by step as that was. Someone who's never used Photoshop at all probably just went, oh my God, I have no idea how to do any of that. What would be your best recommendation for somebody who's like brand new to Photoshop, but they know that they want to take this kind of licensing their work route?
Sure. So actually, I have something for your audience if this is doable. But I have an actual free guide for like Photoshop essentials that I can provide you with a link and specific links so people can grab the download, and it will teach them the toolbar and the adjustments panel, layers panel. So if you're brand new to Photoshop, then, just download that guide. It will show you the entire toolbar, what each tool is, how to use the layers panel, etc. And that's a great place to start.
So I'll put the link to it down below. That's amazing.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, just for you guys. So linked below. That's actually inside my course, Brand Plus Brand, and people have to pay for it. So just for you guys. But from there, taking this tutorial and being able to edit and digitize your watercolor, you can do pretty much anything unimaginable. Anything
unimaginable.
That's the opposite of what you can do. Anything imaginable. So with products, being able to digitize and edit my own watercolor. From there, I'll save the file and upload it to my library of work for licensing clients. So my agent, Julie, is the one that pitches my work to manufacturers. But if you didn't have an agent, you could also pitch your work to manufacturers. And basically you have an online library of work that you organize by collection. So the piece of art or the pattern that I showed you in the tutorial is for an academic year planner. So the theme or the color palette direction that we received from the manufacturer was very bright and vibrant. And the particular buyer or consumer is a target retailer consumer, and they like reds and pinks and oranges. That just does really well on shelves in Target and office supply. So that's the direction we received. But if you're just starting out and you're just wanting to pitch to people and get your work out there, basically what you want to think about and do when you approach editing and digitizing your own watercolor is, how does this work in a collection? Is this the hero or the star of the collection? Is this, meeting a specific need for a manufacturer? So if you're approaching, let's say, a brand that's a beauty manufacturer and they don't have, that space doesn't really have watercolor on their cosmetic cases or something like that. Like, how can you kind of meet a need within that niche and pitch to that manufacturer with that inside your pitch email? So, and we show you how to do all of this inside Brand Plus Brand too, because like there's so much more to it than just like, hey, I do floral watercolor, you need this on your makeup cases. There's so much more that you need to do in terms of competitively setting yourself up and, putting your best foot forward. But think about it in terms of like, I can make a product, I can combine my skills with the manufacturer's skills, and it can be on stores, on shelves in stores, and be sold to consumers. And I can be earning royalty checks each quarter off of sales. And that's something that just like, as a creative person who's built and busted my ass, can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was good.
Okay. I've just like busted my ass over my career. And I'm sure you have too, obviously, like, working around the clock, trying to build my creative business, and being able to kind of sit back and do something one time and have it earn royalty checks for years and years to come is amazing. So for example, like I have my watercolor on these yoga towels that you can find in stores. And here's some like packaging. So after you save the file, you can upload it to your library of work and pitch it to people if you don't have clients or manufacturers that you can work with. Or if you do have a manufacturer, then you would literally just link the file type. So if it's a Dropbox file, you would link the file to them, the folder to them, and they would be able to compile it, design out the products, and it goes through a few rounds of feedback and revisions if needed and all of that. But this is a line I just did with Papyrus that came out. So we have some greeting cards that are in their store this year, and then a lot of other stuff in the works for Target and whatnot. But basically being able to edit your own watercolor and scan it, edit it, whatever, and prep the files and get it all ready for the manufacturer is an incredible asset to have as an artist pitching or presenting your work to a manufacturer, because it's turnkey. So for example, I have, tons and tons of artwork that was used in wedding jobs that I own the rights to, that's just sitting in folders in my Dropbox. And a manufacturer can go into that folder at any time and see, oh, this would work really great on this planner that we're designing, and, pay me for it. And I get royalties on that. So instead of it just sitting there and collecting cobwebs, I can earn a royalty check on it. So it's a pretty amazing industry. There's a lot more to it too, like pitching your work and doing product mock-ups so it looks photorealistic and all of that. But again, if you want to learn all that, it's in my course, Brand Plus Brand, and even way more than that too. But
yeah, well, I was going to say, like, I think even just seeing that tutorial puts people ahead. But if it were me in those shoes, I'd still be like, okay, cool, I can digitize my work, but there's still so much more.
Yes.
So much more to learn. And like, as simple as you make it sound, it's like, no, there's a million moving pieces to that. So I think that anybody who's interested in it should definitely check out your course. And like I said, I will link to it down below. But is there anything else that people should know about it that we should talk about, or did you kind of just hit on all of it right there?
Yeah, I mean, about the course, we also threw in an Instagram for creatives course. So how to shoot, how to go about lighting, editing your photos, writing captions, how to find hashtags and the right ones to use for your audience and your industry. We show you how to understand the algorithm and best practices in terms of getting the best engagement, even with all the changes that have been going on with the algorithm. And there's also a private Facebook group where Julie and I are active in there every single day. And like just this morning, somebody was asking about whether they should copyright or a few designs that they have, if they're going to be on Creative Market or Society 6 and marketplaces like that, and different other very pointed business questions where you don't have access to a brand consultant or a business coach, like just at your fingertips like that. Like Julie alone, who is my co-instructor, charges thousands and thousands of dollars to consult for people like Real Simple Magazine. And she built basically Jonathan Adler before he was Jonathan Adler. Like he is huge now. And she knows so much with her 25 years worth of experience that she's, generously giving back to this Facebook group community. And that alone to me is worth the amount of money that the course is.
I just think that the partnership like you with Julie is so smart. I've never seen anybody do that, where like she is somebody on your team who like probably wouldn't have come up with doing this course for people like us by herself,
right.
But having her plus somebody who knows the industry and has done it and is like, in the thick of it. So smart, so valuable. Like you said, all of it at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Genius.
I mean, we think it's pretty great. I think it's pretty great. We're excited about it. We're like, we keep texting each other like, oh my God, we keep adding information to this course. Like it's so good. We're charging way too little for this.
I know it's a constant struggle. You're like, how good it is. But anyway, so, okay. Yeah. So I am definitely going to link to that down below and people can check that out at any time. But where else can people find you? Like if they want to learn more from you, maybe they don't want to do licensing, but they want to do other stuff. Like give us all the spots they can find you.
Sure. So I have a YouTube channel where I do a lot of free like watercolor, calligraphy, design tutorials on there. So it's just Jenna Rainey channel is the /youtube.com linked below. And then on my website is where you can find all my courses, what I'm up to, blogs. I do a lot of blogging on business, creative business related topics, and my email list also. And then on Instagram, Jenna Rainey, I show the behind the scenes process of licensing jobs I'm working on. I show a lot of my 7-month-old baby in my stories and my family and whatnot. So those are all the different places with tidbits of learning, free learning here and there, and then just more behind the scenes of what I do and whatnot.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Jenna, for coming on here. I think people will find that really useful. And even if they don't end up doing licensing, that tutorial alone will be worth it.
Yes. Thanks so much. This was a good time.
All right. Thanks, Jenna. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.